You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
You guys know who Don Bluth is? He's a writer-director. He's done some amazing animated stuff. He shared a story online today, which I borrowed because I thought it was a cool story. He said that he was talking about Burt Reynolds. And Burt Reynolds was the voice of Charlie the dog in All Dogs Go to Heaven. And when and I guess that's kind of a bizarre idea. Oh my God, Burt Reynolds was the voice of an animated dog. But if you haven't seen the movie, if you have, then you know. It had Lonnie Anderson and stuff like that. But when he first came in to the microphone to record, he had made up what he called this wonderful dog voice. He was very proud of it. But according to Don Bluth, it was awful. So he tried to figure out how he could tell Burt Reynolds, who was a megastar. I mean, he was a megastar. How do you tell him, no, that voice you want to do is horrible? So he called up Dom DeLuise. And Dom and Burt have a very close relationship. They did those Cannonball Run movies together. They did a bunch of stuff together. And Dom could always make Burt laugh. And Dom had done a lot of animated voices, so Don knew Dom. And he called him up and said, how do I get Burt to not use his wonderful dog voice? And Dom laughed and he said, put me in the movie. Call me Itchy and I can fix this. So Don Bluth did this. And in the recording studio, Dom and Burt sat side by side. And when Burt started using his dog voice, Dom looked at him and said, "What the hell is that? You're embarrassing me. Just be Burt. The audience loves Burt." So that is why the character of Itchy ended up in All Dogs Go to Heaven. Now, my thought is, maybe Burt and Dom were working Don to get Dom some more work. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We're going to continue our talks about the Penguin and Agatha all along and some of the new TV shows that are on right now. And we're going to do the usual news and stuff. Hello to Ed. Hello to Triple B. But I wanted to talk first about the passing of a comic creator. And we've seen a lot of comic creators of late past, and we get these great articles and stuff about them, talking about their history and stuff. But there's one gentleman who passed that hasn't really had much fanfare about it. Not much. I don't know how to refer to it, but and it's because his work was a little more on the erotic side. Which, you know me, doesn't faze me at all. And I will tell you that his work and the stuff they were doing at Sirius Entertainment in the 90s kind of opened my eyes to some of the things you could do in comics. So let me start with the passing of comic creator Kevin J. Taylor. Now, like I said, he came up in the 90s creating titles like Model by Day, Body Heat, Fang, and a series he called Girl. He also collaborated at times, and it would appear in the Cry for Dawn comics because he had been good friends with Joseph Michael Linsner, and the two of them kind of came up together. Well, Linsner is the one I found out about this from. that Kevin passed. And Linsner said, back in 1988, I saw something in Kevin's work and he saw something in mine. We were both set up at the New York Creation Cons as fan artists. They were very generous to the new talent those days. I first noticed Kevin's work when I went looking around at what other artists were offering. Kev had some very decent superhero drawings for sale, but then I saw a drawing of one of his girls. I spoke right up. I said, "Hey man, this is great. You should do more of this." Kev looked at me and went, "Oh yeah?" And quickly we became great friends. Now in 1994, Taylor's book Model by Day was actually turned into a movie. I believe it was a TV movie, but it had an amazing cast. It had Famke Janssen from the X-Men movies, Kim Coates, Shannon Tweed, and Sean Young from Blade Runner. And the script was actually written by a young Jeff Loeb. So, like I said, now Linsner went on to describe Taylor's work by saying, he was one of the best. Kev's erotic work was so effective because of the depth of the humanity at the heart of his work. It wasn't just TNA. Kevin was a true artist, and he gave his soul straight from his heart. I will always love his art. So I just wanted to start by acknowledging the passing of Kevin J. Taylor, who, like I said, deserves a lot more attention for his work and for his passing than he's currently getting. So my condolences to him, his family, his friends, and to Joe, who obviously was good friends with him. So, all right, let's move on to the industry news, pop culture news, whatever you want to call it. Fans of Criminal Minds. Well, if you are a fan of Spencer Reid or the actor Matthew Gray Gubler, he's going to return to television at another CBS crime drama. But this one's going to have a little bit more comic undertones. Gubler is going to be in a series. Now, this is the working title, but they're calling it Einstein, and he's going to play Lou Einstein, the brilliant but directionless great-grandson of Albert Einstein, who works as a college professor, who's very loved by his students, and they enjoy his class when he shows up. Now, he's comfortably tenured there, but his bad boy antics do land him in trouble with the law, and he's pressed into service helping a local police detective solve her murder most puzzling cases. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of TV series. Those, Castle. Who else? The new one, High Potential. And that's, but again, those tend to come down to how good is the person doing the show. Castle lasted because Nathan Lane was great as being Castle, and there was a good chemistry between him and the rest of the cast. High Potential, which is on right now, that's really good so far, but it's, again, the chemistry and the actors in it. So Gubler's great at that kind of character, and he's going to play with a little more humor than Spencer Reid had, so could be interesting. Nathan Fillion. I'm sorry, you're right, Nathan Fillion. Nathan Lane would play a good detective. Yeah. If Broadway was my beat, as in Broadway, oh my God, that's a great idea. There was an old radio show called Broadway is My Beat, and it's a crime drama, but taking Broadway is My Beat and making it about the police that work in the area of Broadway, the big musicals and stuff, and you've got to bring in somebody who knows Broadway like Nathan Lane. Okay, that's actually a fun idea. By the way, if you're curious what Gubler has been doing since he left Criminal Minds after being on it for 15 seasons and not coming back for the relaunch, He's been working on writing and authoring or drawing children's books. The most recent one, The Little Kid with the Big Green Hand, just came out last year. So, all right, let's move on. Again, last week we heard of the passing of John Amos, and loved him in everything, whether it was the Admiral in West Wing, all the way back to Good Times and Roots, and the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Coming to America, and 1,000 other things. Well, it turns out he has one last role. He's already filmed the upcoming pilot for Suits LA. That's the spinoff of Suits that's going to star Stephen Amell as Ted Black, who is a kind of entertainment lawyer and stuff like that. And in it, John Amos plays, get this, John Amos. He basically plays himself as a client of Ted's and has a long friendship with him. Now, the role wasn't written to be recurring. There's no big story arc he was part of. So the fact that he passed isn't going to change the story at all. But there was a potential that they could have had him come in and out depending on the situations and stuff. But we found out recently that even though his passing was only announced 2 days ago, he actually died back in August 21st, but they waited for the autopsy and everything else before it was actually announced. So Ed says he was one of the best and funniest TV dads ever. He was the epitome of 70s fathers, tough, manly, strong, caring, and protective, and scared of his wife. The amazing thing about it is I remember growing up watching Good Times and thinking that they were a great couple. He and I think his name was Esther. I remember them be Esther Rollins. I'm just pulling that name. But and then I found out that there's a huge age gap between Amos and the woman that played his wife on the show. But it never came across like that. You know, Amos played the dad, but he was only like in his early 30s at the time. I mean, because if you think about it, he was a dad on a sitcom in the 70s, and it's 2024, and he's just now passed. So, Esther Rawls. Yeah, see, I knew it was close. Played Florida. Loved that show. And I just remember when his character was killed off, I remember believing that the actor had died. So it was always amazing to me to see him show up on other things. Well, no, I thought he died. And it was just so emotional the way they did the scene of Florida just kind of dealing with things. And then one little tiny thing, a moment by herself, and she finally loses it and smashes a glass bowl and just yells out, "Damn, damn, damn." And all her kids come in to console her. And I just thought that was so emotional and so amazing. So Good Times was a good show. I loved it when JJ and his dad would get into with each other. Listen here, Junior. Yep. Yeah. They had one of the funniest lines for me, is one that always pops up. They were getting the apartment painted, and the guy doing the apartment said, "You got two. What color do you want to do this?" And the dad said, "Well, what are our options?" And he said, "You got white and off-white." And the dad said, "How off is off-white?" And the guy looked at him and went, "Green." That always made me laugh. All right, moving on. Well, we won't be getting a sequel to the Batman for 2 years from today. 2 years from today, we'll get the Batman sequel. But we do have good news for Batman-related stuff. The Batman series geared towards preschoolers audience, the Bat Wheels, is getting a third season. And if you think that's kind of weird, like, wait a minute, there's a show that focuses on the Batmobile. It's an animated series on Cartoon Network, and it features Bam the Batmobile as voiced by Jacob Bertrand. But I started looking into this, and it's the other characters. They have Ethan Hawke as Batman, Gina Rodriguez as Catwoman, and Zolo Maraduena from Blue Beetle. He's the voice of Snowy the Snowcrawler. If you haven't checked this out, season 1's on Netflix, but season 2 and the new upcoming third season will be on Cartoon Networks and Max. So, Andrew Garfield is game to reprise his Spider-Man role again if Marvel's plans have him in it. The actor first played, of course, Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man 2012, and then returned for the 2014 sequel, and of course, returning for Spider-Man No Way Home. But he talked about suiting up again. He said, for sure, I would 100% come back if that was the right thing, if it's additive to the culture, if there's a great concept or something that hasn't been done before, that's unique and odd and exciting that you can sink your teeth into. I love the character, brings joy. If part of what I bring is joy, then I'm joyful in return. Now, I'm going to do the Hollywood translation thing. Basically, what he just said was, I'm there if they give me a big bag of money. Okay. Hey, Kenneth, good to see you. Ed says, I would love to see Garfield and Hardy do a Spider-Man Venom movie. That horrible Venom taste from Spider-Man 3 needs to be rectified. There is something weird going on with Venom. Tom Hardy has said that this will be the last Venom movie for him. But the word is that they're going to introduce Null at the end of the movie. And that it possibly will tie back into, I don't know. So don't be surprised if that little tease at the Spider-Man with the Venom isn't the end of that. And that this movie might set that up. Don't be surprised if it doesn't. Just saying, don't be surprised if it does. But going back into the whole Batman thing, DC Studios and Warner Brothers Pictures Animation have greenlit their first project together, a new project called Dynamic Duo. It will mark the first, again, between the two. I don't know a lot about Null. Neither do I. I will do a deep dive into that character. So this animated movie that is going to be scripted by Matthew Aldrich and is being made by a new studio, animation studio called Swaybox. It's a husband and wife creator team of Arthur Mintz and Teresa Anderson, and Mintz will direct the movie, which follows the early days of Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. I want to say the first two Robins, but with all the rejiggering they're doing and stuff, I'm just going to say two of the early Robins. Now, this story will not connect directly to Matt Reeves' The Batman universe, even though Matt Reeves is actually producing this through his 6th and Idaho production company. Also, there's no word whether this will tie into the new DC Universe Gods and Monsters thing that James Gunn and Peter Safran are doing. So, as for Swaybox, they use this thing called Momo Animation, which is kind of a new technology, or it's a technology that it's a combination of CGI animation, stop motion, and live action performances. So they say this actually looks more realistic and believable in 3D than other animations. We shall see. By the way, staying with James Gunn here, and this is the final story. I think it was either on here or it was in the news briefs I do. We mentioned that Rich Johnson over at Bleeding Cool had said he had heard at Baltimore Comic-Con that James Gunn was going to be doing a Superman comic and that it was potentially going to be with Jim Lee. Now, James Gunn came out and debunked that, which James Gunn likes to do. But Johnston has come back and said that the rumors from Baltimore are starting to become a little more clear. They're kind of, other things are coming out. What he says now is he believes that the comic Gunn will be doing, or at least will have his name on, is actually going to come from Hack/Slash creator Tim Seeley and comic artist Mitch Gerards. And what they're going to be doing is actually a Peacemaker vigilante comic that might just have Gunn's name in, because it's based in that universe that Gunn made for the TV series Peacemaker. Or he might be writing it. We don't know. But that's the latest from Rich Johnson. Jay says, TJ wants to know if you heard anything about Disney wanted Star Wars staff to make a Legend of the Phoenix in a galaxy far, far away. Okay. I did some look. You mentioned this, Jay, and I did some looking into that. The closest thing that I've got to this is that when they were putting together What If, there was a pitch that was to combine the two. One of the episodes was pitched to be a Star Wars Marvel crossover. And that so far has been the closest thing that has come to that potential. What ended up happening was Marvel and Star Wars, Kevin Feige and the Star Wars people don't want that to happen. They want to keep them separate. But if you watch season 1, the T'Challa as a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy or as Star-Lord, there is a TIE fighter in the collector's menagerie with all the spaceships and stuff. So that's as close as there's going to be. No, there's no active projects. And yeah, so tell TJ that that's not in the works. So, but it might be the What If episode is kind of where that comes from. Hey, Slipknot, good to see you. Ed asked, any word on the Hemsworth Hogan pick? I'm sorry I keep asking, but you know what? It kind of has dropped off the radar, and I think I heard that it's not moving forward, and it's kind of between a couple things. One being the scandals and stuff that Hogan was involved with, but the other has to do with his coming out and supporting Trump, his getting into politics and stuff like that. So I don't know if maybe it'll get back on track once this election's over, but to the best, from everything I've been hearing, that's kind of been put on the back burner. And Hemsworth is moving forward on other projects. So we'll have to see if that happens or not. But all right, guys, that is the news. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about some of the TV shows going on right now. So be right back.
Download our app on Google Play and the App Store. It's so simple, even my mommy can use it.
Something is speaking to you.
Play more comics.
Just at the edge of your perception.
Play more comics.
Your senses fill with visions of vortices.
360 comics.
Slowly drawing you to one thundering epiphany.
360 comics!
360 comics!
The universe is telling you to shop with 360 Comics. Joe's got amazing stock from high dollar to $5 books from Silver Age to modern, CGC, variant covers, and more. 360 Comics every Wednesday at 9 Eastern, part of the experience. Ask your local comic shop to add Battle Quest comics to your pull list today.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Hit that like button, please. Subscribe if you haven't. All of that stuff. All right. Wow. Ed's got me thinking about politics and being sick of it and stuff, and I agree with you. I am too. But, I don't know. We seem to be in a uniquely diverse time. And I think that some of the people involved drive that diversity. I think we watched a vice presidential debate the other night that was much more toned and tempered of 20 years ago, 15 years ago than what we've been getting. So hopefully this will be the last cycle this bad, and maybe things will start going back to a more, being able to agree to disagree type of thing. But I don't think that's going to happen, at least in the next month. So, all right, let's get into the shows. Let me talk about, I got some stray thoughts about different shows before we get into Agatha and the Penguin. Watched a new show last night, Dr. Odyssey. It's from Ryan Murphy, the same guy that does like American Horror Story and stuff like that. So I thought maybe this will be a little twisted or something. But no. It was a pretty straightforward Love Boat type thing. It was a pretty straightforward Love Boat-ish type show. And the only thing that came out of it is I like the cast. You have Don Johnson as the captain. You have Philippa Sue as the nurse. And if you don't know who Philippa Sue is, she's from Hamilton. She was the one, the sister that married Hamilton. And Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek as the main doctor. And I was surprised. Maybe I didn't notice Joshua Jackson before that much, but he's got this different way about carrying himself that it was almost Cary Grant-like. It was almost 50s cinema star, just the way he walked about and he moved. There was, like old Hollywood star. And I don't know if that's him or it was what the role he's putting on. But I watched the whole thing, and all I could think of through the whole thing was, I don't believe this guy. I kept expecting us to find out that he was lying about something. And it was a straightforward thing. So, but it's weird because I'm not expecting Don Johnson to be the captain of a cruise liner. So why did the casting just feels like there's going to be a twist or something, especially from Ryan Murphy, but nothing in the first episode. So, but yeah, that's the show with Joshua Jackson. Let's see. JD says it's the voting system. First past the post voting always led to two-party systems. Yeah. Rank voting could make a difference, but we'll see. He'll always be Charlie from Mighty Ducks. Okay. He's definitely not Charlie from Mighty Ducks in this. And Slip says, I was watching a YouTube short about Hogan shaving his mustache for the low-budget action movies he did. I grew up with Hulk Hogan, and when I did watch wrestling when I was 12, 13 years old, so, that's always got a place in my heart, but I don't know. All right, so another thing is if you're watching Only Murders in the Building, the latest episode was very different, and they've done it. They really experiment every once in a while. Like every season, they'll do one episode that's outside the box. In the first season, they did one. They tend to make an episode by the point of view of a certain person. It changes week to week, who the star of the episode is or who the narrator is. And in one of the episodes in season 1, it was from the point of view of a deaf person. And they did the whole episode silent. And it was brilliant. It worked so well. This week, they did an episode from the point of view of 2 film directors. So everything was done from like handheld cameras and switching points of view and stuff like that. And where I still love the show and they gave you some really good information in the episode, this style was hard to watch. So this is the first time I finished an episode of the series going, yeah, that one didn't work. That part didn't work. So, but I still love the show. I'm still catching up on Lord of the Rings. I know Ed watches that, and I'm about 3 episodes in, so I am behind. But I know the season finale dropped and a lot of big things happened, so I will catch up on that as quickly as possible. And Ed, if you didn't know, Critical Role season 3 or Vox Machina season 3 has dropped. Again, haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but the first 3 episodes are out, something like that. So you might want to check that out. All right, let's get over to Agatha Penguin. We'll go with Agatha. Now, the pitch for this week was we were going to talk about the witches in the coven. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on them because I think it's going to become much more apparent. Now, there might be some spoilers here. So if you want to bail out, go for it now. But coming into the episode, we know that Sharon is no longer with them. JG just got that up as I said it. So we're not going to focus on Sharon, who I don't believe was an actual witch. But there are 3 witches in the coven who have appeared in the comics. Jennifer Kale, played by Shashir Zamata. Lilia Calderu, played by Patti LuPone. That is true, Jay. That is very true. And Alice Wu Gulliver, played by Ali Ahn. Now, what Jay is talking about is that 2 pop figures photos of 2 pop figures came out that spoil quite a bit. But I think this episode kind of opened the door to what was spoiled. So we'll get to that. But let me just tell you about these 3 witches because, Jennifer Kale is probably outside of Wanda Maximoff and Agatha Harkness, Jennifer Kale is probably the most used next witch in Marvel. I know there's Amanda from the X-Men, stuff like that. But Jennifer Kale is She's of the three witches. She's one of the three witches to join the coven. She's the potions witch, but that's not really the character from the comics. She first appeared in Fear number 11 in September of 1972. So she's also the oldest of these three. She was created by Steve Gerber and Rich Buckler, and she's closely tied to the Man-Thing, which is great because we've already got the Man-Thing in the MCU thanks to Werewolf by Night. So we could connect these two characters up in the future. Now, I forgot. I was going to send JD some pictures of these witches because they don't look anything like they do in the comics. Jennifer Kale is long blonde hair, usually wears like this little tiny bikini type outfit because it was the 1970s comics. She got a later costume that was more armor based, but it was cool. She was raised within the cult of Zered-Na, where her father was the leader. And they basically were a cult created by, there we go, Jennifer Kale. Zered-Na is an ancient Atlantean sorceress that had seen the prediction of a great cataclysm coming, told Emperor Camus about it, and he threw her out. He exiled her. So she traveled to the mainland where she found disciples, where she taught them sorcery, and it foretold the coming of a demonic army that would be opposed by Man-Thing. So that connection was there. And she taught a lot of her stuff to a man named Dakim, Dakimh. She has the same headgear as the Scarlet Witch. It's a Union thing. That's the Union safety helmet that witches have to wear in the MCU. Now, Dakim learned enough magic to be practically immortal. And remember I said that. Practically immortal. Now, Jennifer was raised by the new cult leader in the modern day. And she was interested in witchcraft and started kind of reading through the books and scrolls and stuff without her dad knowing. And she ended up summoning a demon, like you do when you're a kid. Thog the Netherspawn. And out of nowhere, she was saved by Man-Thing. Now, this kind of created a psychic link between the two, Jennifer and Man-Thing, not Thog. And this would lead them to working together quite a bit over the years. Jennifer, when her dad figured this out, Jennifer was trained originally by her dad, and then they were able to tap into or get her in connection with Dakim, who is still around because he's practically immortal or nearly immortal. That was until he died. And then his ghost started training her. Now, she would go on to ally with the Man-Thing many times, also with Doctor Strange, Howard the Duck, and Spider-Man. She became part of the Legion of Night, which was a short-lived Marvel thing. And their job was to stop the summoning of Fing Fang Foom. She was also asked by Doctor Strange to teach a young man named Danny Ketch about dealing with his new demon possession, as he was the new Ghost Rider. And then when Danny and his brother, Johnny Blaze, teamed up, she would eventually work with them and join the Midnight Suns for a while. She came into conflict with the Thunderbolts and helped the Scarlet Witch defend a small town against, and I swear I'm not making this name up, the Serpentinians. Fing Fang Foom is awesome. She's been one of Marvel's go-to witches for over 50 years, but again, never really got that popular. It's kind of interesting. But that's Jennifer. Lilia Calderoo, the one played by Patti LuPone. Now, she's interesting. Our girl Lilia wasn't around very long in the comics, so much so that she appeared first in Marvel Premiere number 12 in August of 1973 and died in issue 13. Now, she was interestingly brought back in flashbacks later on, but she was created by Steve Englehart, Mike Friedrich, and Frank Brunner, and was the daughter of the first Baron Mordo, not the Baron Mordo we think of that conflicted with Dr. Strange, Carl Mordo, but actually Nikolai and his mistress Mirka. And Lilia would often take the appearance, excuse me, of an older woman to enhance her reputations because she became known as the Gypsy Queen. This is how she really looked, and that's the serpent crown on top of her head, which is important to some comic stories. Again, that doesn't look like Patti LuPone. It may have looked like Patti LuPone when she was younger, but not now. Anyway, she was also the keeper of the Book of Cagliostro. Now, you've probably heard that name. It was in Doctor Strange. It was the page that Calicius, the bad guy, Mads Mikkelsen's character, stole to use to be able to tap into the dark dimension. That's the Book of Cagliostro. It's also talked about a lot in the Doctor Strange episode of What If. Well, she had that. And the new Baron Mordo, Carl Mordo, wanted it. So he basically, I don't want to say seduced her, but he romanced her for the sole purpose of stealing the book. And when he did, he left and broke her heart. But using the Book of Cagliostro when she had it, she was able to, her divination magic is what she has, and she was able to foretell the coming of a young Wanda Maximoff, so that she was there when Wanda first got her powers and helped train Wanda. Again, that was an addition to the backstory of Scarlet Witch. Now, she attempted to get revenge against Mordo for stealing the book and breaking her heart by taking control of Doctor Strange and attacking Mordo. But she ended up dying in the battle. So, and then at one point in flashback, she ended up in possession of the Serpent Crown, which is what we saw in the photo. But that was taken back by Chthon. Chthon's the writer of the Darkhold. Okay. One more to talk about. Alice Gulliver. Alice is a more recent creation, first appearing in Doctor Strange Last Days of Magic in 2016 by James Robinson and Mike Perkins. She is the daughter of August Wu of the Coral Shore and the magical guardian of Hong Kong. She's also a police detective, and her father was a police detective named Adam Gulliver. Her mother was killed by demonic magical assailants, while her father was killed by the Chinese Triad. While she followed in her father's footsteps and became a police detective, she used her magical abilities from her mother to help her to work, but she did so quietly. She basically would imbue her weapons and stuff with hexes and spells that nobody would notice to help her. She also assisted the Scarlet Witch while investigating the Dark Tungji and helped bring him down. So those are the three characters. Again, Jennifer Kale's the big one. You can find her in like 60 different comic stories. Lilia Calderone is only in like the main appearances in Marvel Premiere, and then she pops up in flashbacks having to do with the Serpent Crown and Scarlet Witch. And then Alice is more of a new one, and she appears in the Doctor Strange series and working with Scarlet Witch. So yeah, those are the basic characters. Now, what we're getting in the series was this really interesting episode, because we start with Sharon being gone and them deciding they need to summon a green witch, and they end up summoning Rio Vidal. Now, I've talked in the past how I didn't think Rio Vidal was actually Rio Vidal, because if they're going to take the time to find Lilia Calderone and Alice Wu Gulliver to bring into the story, I don't think they're just going to create a new character. And I said before that I thought maybe she was Morgan Le Fay. Well, this episode and some certain Funko Pop releases, and again, this is the big spoiler one, it is looking like she may be the human incarnation of death. There's references to it in the episode. When Teen is wounded and might be dying, Agatha tells her no. as in don't take this one. There was a discussion between Agatha and Rio about how Agatha will end up killing and stealing the power of all the witches in her coven, and then Rio will get the bodies. So there's a lot in this episode that point at her being death. So how, and she refers to herself as the Green Witch, not just a Green Witch, the Green Witch. So that could be a whole life and death thing. But I think that's what we're learning here, is that she is the embodiment of death. And where in the comics, death has a relationship with Thanos, in the MCU, it's going to be with Agatha. Also, they did squash the potential, or at least they say they squashed the potential of Teen being Nicholas Scratch by her outright telling Agatha that's not your son. But we do see that Agatha is becoming connected to him. Now, I didn't really think he would be. I think we all kind of assume he's going to be Billy, but we'll see. And again, I think the Funko Pop says he is too. So, but we won't talk about the Funko Pops anymore. The episode was pretty good. There was that campy scene, which normally stuff like that would bug me in a series, but for some reason, this really worked. I liked it. I liked them singing the song as kind of a 70s, band. And maybe you guys can help me out with this. As I watch the episode and they walk into the firehouse, or that house, and they turned into the 70s outfits, it's pretty obvious that Patti LuPone's Lila becomes a version of Liza Minnelli from that era. And Alice becomes Janis Joplin. And Jennifer becomes Diana Ross. I am having a hard time placing. I'm thinking that Catherine Hahn's character, Agatha, becomes Stevie Nicks. But I haven't been able to figure out who Rio Vidal becomes. And I'm thinking Teen becomes Jim Morrison. So that's what it looks like, or kind of plays on those 70s rockers or 70s musicians. So Slip says there's an Iron Man comic called Viva Las Vegas featuring Fing Fang Foom. The artwork is phenomenal. Yeah, I remember that. That is good. Oh, Cher. Yeah, that could be. That would make a lot of sense. So, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Unknown. So, yeah. I liked the episode. I liked them singing. I liked how there was some music. And I love the idea that her mom was using the music to make a protection spell to save her daughter. I thought that was awesome. So I really liked the episode, partly because I enjoyed that moment, even though it was kind of cheesy and kind of rushed. It still worked for me. But on the either sides of it, we got so much information, so much moving the story forward, that I ended up liking it a lot. So this is still on the good side for me. I'm really enjoying this series. I won't get too much more into it. We'll spend some more time. We'll continue these along as the series run. But what did you guys think? Just throw it in chat if you guys liked the episode or if it got a little too cheesy for you. I did like how they had to work together better to solve a riddle or to piece things together in the last episode, where this one they just had to suddenly know how to play instruments. That seems a little weird, actually being a bass player. You don't just know how to play, but okay. Let me just talk about Penguin real quick. So, JD, I think we're going to skip the last break. All right. So Penguin, really enjoyed this series. I love what Kristen Milotti is doing as Sophia. And I really like what Colin Farrell's doing as the Penguin. Again, you cannot see him in there. He's amazing. It's starting to come together, some of the stuff. I'm getting ideas of what's going to happen just from... This is not a series where you can easily predict how this is going to play out. This is going to be very twisty and turning. And we've seen it in the first 2 episodes that what appears to be the obvious plans aren't what end up happening. A lot of it is Oz trying to think on his feet, shifting gears, planting the knife on somebody you don't expect. All of that I thought was really great. But what we're also getting, and we're getting 2 things that are kind of tethering Oz to being likable, to being human, to being decent. One of which is his mother, and the other is Victor. Which means I'm pretty sure neither one of them are going to come out of the series alive. But I think what's going to happen is going to be very different. I think somebody is going to get to Oz's mother, and that's going to be what flips him. That's going to be the switch that takes him from being kind of the underling trying to do better to being the Penguin we see in the comics. I think his mother's death will be that. So it's a Dr. Horrible story. The other one, Victor, I think is not there to affect Oz, but he's going to be there to affect us. I think what's going to happen is that Oz is going to kill Victor. And he's going to do so when it's not 100% necessary, unless you're a bad person. I think in a lot of ways, Victor is going to be the thing that puts Oz back in the villain category for the audience. Because right now, people are starting to root for Oz. They see him as trying to do this, trying to make a better life. They're starting to empathize with him, which is great for this series, but will not work going into the Batman 2. He has to be a bad guy. And if they are going to put him back, then I think what's going to happen is he's going to have to kill Victor. But it's going to have to be in a way that people are going to be like, he didn't need to do that. You know, it's not going to be like Lenny of a Mice and Men type of thing. It's going to be, we're going to lose our connection to him through him killing Victor. So that's my feeling on it, is because, I mean, at the end of the day, he still has to be a bad guy. He's not going to be the hero. But through this story, we have to want to see what happens to him. And they're going to keep doing these things, like him framing an innocent person. Okay, he was an innocent member of the mafia, so we don't feel that bad. But he still didn't do it. Can never defend that scene. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't hate the Martha scene as many people did, because to me that was an attempt to show Superman's humanity and connect him to Bruce, to Batman. So I get what Zack Snyder was going for there. Did it work? No. No. But I get what he was going for. So I let it slide. But okay, back to the Penguin. I see ZD. There's going to be a showdown with ZD. Is it ZD? Michael Kelly's character, the guy that he accused of setting them up. I think that's going to come sooner rather than later. This is a big game of chess, and I'm fascinated by it because, again, it reminds me a little bit of The Sopranos. The problem is, in The Sopranos, they weren't necessarily trying to make us not like Tony. We could like Tony, but he was still a bad person. That's what they're doing here. But there weren't as many other players. There were the cops, and then there'd be like outside mobs, but this is much more working from the inside. Tony was already the boss in The Sopranos. So this is fascinating to me to see this guy from the underdog trying to work all the angles to work his way up. And we know he gets there. So it's not a matter of, oh, how's this going to, it's what did he do to get out of this? That's what we watch each week for now is how does he get out of this? And he's gotten in deep multiple times already, and he's gotten out of it. So I'm really enjoying the Penguin. It's probably one of my favorite things that's been on the air this year. So Jay says, please save my mother. Batman is taken aback because he has the monster dead to rights, but he wants him to save his mom. Lois runs in, covers up Clark, and says, Lex took his mother's hostage. Yeah. But by saying Martha, he connected to Batman. That's it. That's what he was trying to do. So, all right, guys. Loving Penguin, loving Agatha. There's some great TV shows on right now. And I'm enjoying the hell out of them. We'll talk more about some next week. Why did you say that name? Yep. But, join me next week. Let's talk some more about it. Let me know what you guys thought, what you think about my ideas for what's going to happen to Victor and his mother, Penguin's mother, what you think is going to happen in Agatha with Teen and Rio Duvall, stuff like that. Let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. By the way, Ed, Neely has been greenlit. So not only do we get Reacher 3 in January, but we're going to be getting a Neely spinoff series soon too. So, all right, guys, I will see you next time. Have a great week.